that we need an emergency energy plan means that we have an urgent issue to deal with. Do we?
Definitely, we have energy crisis at hand or in the offing. Because if you want to gauge this and get a good understanding, look at the occurrences in the last 1 month. Just about 4 weeks ago, the IPPs gave an indication to government that if 30% of what is due them by government is not cleared, they will shut down their system. It took a last-minute intervention to avert that move. Just 2 days after that, NGAS cut gas supply to Ghana, that is the gas from Nigeria, was cut briefly, also because of debt issues. Then 2 weeks after that, being last week, we had Greco blaming WAPCO for being the cause of the interruption we saw in power supply on that day. And so we had a discussion on it, and I did point to you that there are also certain problems that need to be solved. And of course, there are contractual issues and debt obligations that are not being met. And so the whole power sector is plagued by financial challenge. Revenue collected is not enough to clear the debt at hand. That's why over the past 8-9 months, you've seen increases in tariff and all that. They are not just to cover costs, but also to clear some of the debt sitting. I remember you have a legacy debt that has not been cleared, even though ESLA was put in place to clear that in a period of 5 years. We still have that deficit, and the debt keep on mounting day after day because revenue collected at the end of the value chain or supply chain is not enough to pay everybody within that chain. And in the power sector, liquidity challenge is a crisis and a major challenge, of course, because you need money to be able to oil the system, retool the system, revamp the system, maintain the system, and ensure that there's power supply stability and consistency.
So basically, the challenge, as you understand it, is not that of fuel or generation, but money.
The biggest challenge we have at hand is the revenue shortfalls. But going into next year, before the end of next year, if we don't shore up our power generation capacity, that becomes a different challenge in itself, because we've been trumpeting excess capacity for 7 years. It reminds me of the boy who goes out to the field with the sheep and cries, "Wolf, wolf." And there was, there's a wolf. You go and check, and there is none. And the day came where the wolf came, the real wolf came, and the villagers, nobody went because they thought, as usual, this is a prank. We've been crying excess capacity, and we're almost cut pants down. Where there exists no excess capacity, but rather we're going to have under capacity in terms of generation next year. That becomes a different challenge in itself, aside the liquidity challenge at hand.
So whilst we are trying to tackle the financial challenge, the issue of generation will soon creep on us.
Definitely, it will catch up with us next year, going to 2025. It may worsen if we don't add on to our power generation. We only pray that as soon as possible, Ameri should come back online so that it can cushion us going into next year. We moved Ameri from Takoradi. It's not been, restored in Kumasi as was planned. If we do that, I'm sure we'll be saved while we make arrangements for other additional capacity going into 2025. But then, at this moment, what the operation head of the World Bank is talking about is with the liquidity challenge or the revenue shortfall. And I'm sure we've done a discussion on this before, the value chain, where you have somebody generating the power, but before the person does the generation, they will need fuel when it comes to particularly the thermal generation. And so either liquid fuel or natural gas is supplied to the generators by VRA. Although the Ghana gas would, produce the natural gas or probably, run it, clean it dry, the owner of the natural gas is VRA. GMPC, sorry. They will give it to the power generators to generate power. Somebody will also now have to transmit the power at a high voltage, and that is GridCo, to the distributors. And the distributors, being the ECG and NETCO, will bring it closer to us as consumers, either for domestic or industrial, use. So at the end of the chain sits the distributors, and this moment I will use the ECG because they control more than 80% of the market in terms of distribution. ECG must have to sell this power, collect the revenue, and go and put it into what we have today as a cash waterfall, mechanism or system. The money goes into that vault and it's distributed based on, proportionally to each one within the chain. However, there are two major things that is, affecting the effectiveness of this cash waterfall system. One, that is insufficient revenue collection. Then two, we have had, situation where we know that insufficient revenue, some are even diverted. But how do we get that shortfall in revenue collection? So now you also probably recollect that today, GridCo is allowed to lose almost 5% of the power given to them to transmit for technical reasons. This is very high, 5%. Then when it comes to the distributors, they are incurring almost about 16% losses as a result of technical reasons, and almost about 10% thereabout losses for commercial, reasons. It means that a chunk of the revenue shortfall sits with the distributors where they are not able to collect enough the revenue and the money due the other people within the chain. You heard operations head mention meter. In this our modern world, we still have postpaid metering system in our homes. How did this happen? Even the prepaid meters, most of them are not smart prepaid meters, where the system controller can detect tampering. And so you have theft of power here and there. You have your ECG's own, laziness come to play, where they don't collect the bill when they are even due. Thank God that over the past 6 months, we've seen some action from them. And we want to commend the new ECG boss for that very tough decision to go after every, customer who owes the ECG. And so the metering system is to be blamed also, and all feeds into the revenue collection system of the ECG. If they cannot collect the little that they even serve us with, that money, then of course the entire chain is starved of the needed fund to maintain the system. IPPs cannot maintain their system. Transmitters cannot maintain their system if they don't get the money. GMPC cannot assure us of the natural gas supply. WAPCO cannot assure us. And gas cannot assure us of any supply. And so the major challenge at hand is the revenue collection.
Because she was talking about metering, billing, collection, that they see a challenge with. You talk about the metering, that you think there's a challenge there. And I'm guessing that when you have a problem with metering, billing is a problem.
Come again, Senna. I missed you there.
I'm saying that she says three things: metering, billing, collection. And I'm saying if there's a problem with metering, then I'm assuming that there'll be a problem with billing.
Oh, definitely. There's a problem with billing. I'm sure the ECG will admit that there are some homes or customers who they've not been able to access for years to collect power money owed them. There are even prepaid metering systems that are more functional, that are not even reading as they should read. The meter sits there and power goes through, and it's not recorded. And so the billing system is, of course, a challenge as well. You can have the meters all right, but then if it's not graduated and it's not shaped in a way that it's able to generate bills and collectors also follow same to collect, then, of course, we have a billing system problem as well.
And I'm wondering because when at the time, I remember when we had Doomsaw, the administration at the time told us they were solving three different problems. One, they were dealing with generation. Two, they were dealing with fuel supply. In fact, that was where they activated work on the Tuabo and a lot more. Then the third one was a critical issue of ESLA, which you mentioned. ESLA was supposed to deal with the financial issues and give the sector the backing it needs in terms of liquidity, so we don't return to matters of finance that have been raised over the years. Where did ESLA fail?
We ended up distorting the intended plan for ESLA. You remember February 2017, the energy sector debt that we call legacy debt was around 2.7 billion. So let's say it's about 3 billion. At the time that the former finance minister, Mr. Tepe, introduced ESLA, against even our world, we spoke against it. Yet he maintained that is supposed to clear the legacy debt. And ESLA was supposed to bring in a minimum of $600 million a year. So the intention was within a period of 5 years, this debt must be cleared. Today, we still have components of the legacy debt, some aspect of it sitting in the books, and add-ons have come, online, where we have debt of in excess of 3 billion today. Where did we miss it? The moment we sought to collateralize the ESLA, we distorted the plan. And so if you ask where we went wrong, it's when we tampered with the plan on the table. ESLA would have cleared all the debt by now. In 5 years, that was the intention. Today, we're still talking about ESLA. It sits right in the fuel, price computation table. We are paying for every liter of fuel that you buy. You are still paying. And you keep on paying for the next 5 years, looking at how things are going. So when plans are not followed through for whatever reason, then of course you are going to disturb a system. And so ESLA has failed. We have failed at ESLA. Power generation, yes, we're able to show up our install capacity to the point where we start discussing excess capacity. fuel supply challenge, we have gone beyond that. Today, you have almost all the thermal plants running on natural gas, of which is more accessible and available. In fact, as a country, natural gas that is produced from our fields, we are able to even utilize 50% of that. It means that we have abundance of fuel for our thermal plants. The major challenge we have at hand is how to clear and make sure that ESLA is working effectively. The cash waterfall system is also working effectively.
Now, but first of all, when you're mentioning the debt, we're talking about $1 billion or you're talking about cedis?
Well, and I was talking about $1 billion. That was in October 2016. We discussed it was around $3 billion. February 2017, it was around $2.7 billion. And we knew that ESLA was going to rake in not less than $600 million every year. And so in a period of 5 years, we should be able to clear that sitting there. But today, that is not the case, unfortunately.
Considering we are still paying ESLA, are we in a position where we cannot reverse what has been done so that ESLA serves the purpose for which we are paying it?
I am able to, speak to that. The detail of the collateralization is scanty. Number two, I won't claim to be a finance person.
But what do we need to do urgently? Because listening to the World Bank managing director in charge of operations, I get the impression the focus really will be on tariff increases. Is that the way to go?
Ordinarily, I would say that's not the way to go. But given what we have at hand, unfortunately, that is the easiest route that government may be compelled to take. And it's taking that already. Every quarter you see power, tariff increase. You remember we even had a court to challenge the PRC about 4 months ago when they did the first quarter tariff adjustment. And they did say that hydro is going to generate roughly 26-point-something%, and thermal is going to do almost 73%. The moment you increase thermal's contribution to the power generation, then you are seeking to say that we will have to pay for more because thermal is expensive than hydro. And we did say, look, from our computation and looking at the water level of Bui and Akosombo, hydro can generate more than 32%. The PRC challenged us. Fast forward, last quarter when they were doing the review, they now came and say hydro can generate about 31%. They say so even the power tariff adjustment system, we believe that it is not fair because if you have to use all the indices and the variables, you find that we don't need to be where we are today. But for sure, we know as part of the recovery system, we will need more money. And so definitely it will be hiked beyond what we see as the real cost of power generation, transmission, and distribution should be, just to make sure that they have some assets to clear the debt at hand and the revenue shortfall already in the system. And so we'll keep on seeing that. But it will get to a point where it will become a major challenge for consumers if it's not well managed. Then people may be forced and compelled to cut corners. And that could mean illegal connections and all that. And we must be very careful. It will get to a point where the productive sector of the economy will struggle because their major cost that they have to, deal with will be the electricity cost, and that becomes, a disincentive to produce more, and consumers will be, reluctant to consume because prices of goods and services are up. It's going to impact negatively on the entire sector at a point. So we must manage it. It's good that the operations head, caution as well, particularly protecting the vulnerable group within the consumer bracket.
Are you suggesting that we'll get to a point where we'll be overcharged for power?
Definitely, yes. They need to clear the existing debts. ESLA cannot work all the magic. Remember, we discussed this, and the people were asking the last time the tariff was adjusted, is this tariff adjustment induced by our, IMF, negotiation and the package we are seeking for? To some extent, we all concluded yes.
Interesting, because I have always noticed that over the years the tariff structure has been done in such a way to acknowledge the fact that there are a lot of Ghanaians who will not be able to pay full cost for the electricity they are consuming. Have you gone to the point where even those who have been trying to cater for may actually ultimately not be in the position to pay for power?
The lot of people that the people that we put in the lifeline, bracket. If you look at it, most Ghanaians are within that bracket, but the power that we consume, goes beyond what the lifeline, consumers should attract, and so you find that only few will fall in that bracket. But the reality is that most Ghanaians are able to pay for the power that they need. If you look at the cost, how much is your take-home center, and look at how much you pay, you're only living as a magician. And so that's the life of most Ghanaians. And so it gets to a point where it becomes difficult even managing corruption in the country because people live and have to survive beyond their take-home.
Well, let me conclude by then asking you what significant part is there, because there are those who are also drawing attention to the exchange rate. Does it have a significant role in all this discussion?
You cannot discount the exchange element when it comes to the variables that influence power prices. It's very important because most of the machinery component part that is required in the power sector is sourced from outside the country. And so if the forex plays against us, then of course we have to cough more cities to buy the same part or spare that we bought a year ago, a month ago, 3 months ago. It plays a key role. Inflation does also play a role because ECG, Greco, and all that will also have to, live with challenge of getting people, contractors to come on board and work for them and all that. So if inflation is working negatively against us as a country, it also impacts on the distributors, generators, and the generators as well. Then the cost of fuel is another part. Then the energy generation mix, how much contribution we are getting from hydro and the thermal, all plays a role. So all the elements and the components in the PRC price adjusting formula, they deserve to be there, and they are very significant. You count them as significant.
Nana, thank you very much.
Super morning, Sana.
Same to you, Nana. Nana Amoasi the seventh is Executive Director, Institute for Energy Security, speaking to us. So I guess the key question to ask you is, are you able to pay for power? Electricity. Are you paying for it? How comfortable